Are you ready? Because the RedZone Podcast starts now. Welcome to episode 23 of the RedZone Podcast. I'm your host, Emmanuel Point du jour. Today is the Grey Cup preview where we break down the Grey Cup and we break down the West and East final. I got a chance to have a good discussion with Brett Lubkiwski, so I'll send you out to that right now. Enjoy. Let's start with this East final. Wow. 16-2 Toronto Argonauts getting upset 38-17 by the Montreal Alouettes. Chad Kelly did not have a good day at all. His stats 21 for 36, 246 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions. Brett, get me started. What happened in this game?
Well, I mean, just the Montreal defensive game plan was just played to perfection. They got almost nothing done on offense that whole game, but they made them pay when they needed to. And it was just unbelievable to watch a guy who's nominated for most outstanding player, might very well win it, play the worst game of his professional career.
Yeah.
On the biggest stage. And at the 16-2 curse, it struck again. It's unbelievable.
I mean, Montreal's defense was just flat. Well, it was great. It's been great throughout these playoffs. But, I mean, 4 interceptions. And some of these throws were just, I don't know where he was throwing the ball. And they were in this game. I mean, 10-3 at half. Second half, you throw 2 interceptions, I think, the first 2 drives of the game. One is a pick six.
First 3.
So, first play of the game, yeah. I don't get it. Cody Fajardo, 18 for 25, 175, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception there. So not a horrible game for Cody Fajardo, and it wasn't really their offense because I think Cody got sacked, I'm pretty sure 7 times in this game. So it wasn't like the offense, Montreal's offense was winning them this ball game. It was definitely their defense.
Yeah, defense and special teams too. Like you mentioned, like how big that second half was to start, and 2 pick sixes in one game. Another one led to another touchdown, and then just when it looked like Toronto was starting to get themselves back into the game, they finally got a drive going. They cut into the lead, and we think, okay, here we go. Here's that 16-2 team. They're gonna come storming back. Immediately return for a touchdown. Game over right there. And like you mentioned, Chad Kelly, look at just some of those throws that he was making. I can't believe the decision making. And he was telegraphing them. He was double pumping, and he was like looking straight at the man he wanted the whole time. And that's a very good Montreal defense, but that looked easy for them. And they made it look easy. I think ended up being 9 total turnovers by the end of the game.
I don't know. You can't win a game with 9 turnovers. I mean, you just can't. Aju let their run game, which I thought would be bigger, it was actually pretty good. 14 carries, 71 yards. Chad Kelly had 8 carries for 62. Wow, I did not know that. But the run game, they went to it early, but the interceptions were just, it proved to be the backbreaker in this game. They just never recovered.
Yeah, and like when you need to rely on your pass game too much in the playoffs, that's really going to hurt you, because when we get into playoff time, that's when that run game really makes a difference in the CFL, when the ball's a little bit stiffer, when it's just colder outside, when there's snow on the ground some years. It's so hard to move the ball through the air, and that just really played a factor, and they relied on that a lot, and it wasn't working, and they put themselves into too deep of a hole, and it was never going to happen for them.
Yeah, now
gotta give it up to Coach Jason Moss.
Yeah, Jason Moss. I did not believe in this Alouettes team at the beginning of the year. I think I had them at like 6 or 7 wins. I just didn't like the Jason Moss and Cody Fajardo combo. I didn't like it. Last year in Saskatchewan, it didn't work. Typically, well, mainly because Cody Fajardo got sacked 77 times, I think, that year. So it didn't work. But they proved me wrong. They won 11 games, the most since I don't know when. I think I'm not sure. I think 2015 or 2014, most games won. So I mean, good for them, and they've got here with their defense, definitely. So it's good for them. Now switching over to our West final, your Winnipeg Blue Bombers prevailed 24-13. That defense, I mean, the defense for Winnipeg is just amazing. Willie Jefferson was knocking down passes every chance he got. 13 for 26, 221 yards, one touchdown, and three interceptions for Vernon Adams Jr. Why don't you get us started? What did you see in this game?
Well, like you mentioned earlier, it's that defense. It's just the ability that they've had year after year to just continue to do what they do. And we talked about the lack of being able to establish a running game on the Toronto side. The exact opposite from Winnipeg. They came out opening drive, pound the rock, Brady Oliveira, Brady Oliveira, Brady Oliveira, give it to him again and again and again. And they just could not stop them.
Yeah.
And it was unbelievable to see. And, we kind of saw the Bombers do something that they tend to do, which is they switch off a little bit at random times, and they allowed BC back into the game with that Hail Mary to end the first half. Like nuts, absolutely crazy play. I love that. Even as someone who is a Bomber fan who grew up with my dad and his family being Bomber fans, it's just, you got to respect that. And you have to love that kind of play. And it made the game that much more exciting. But then that Bomber defense they took any excitement out of it, it seemed, in that second half as they just shut it down.
Yeah, they really did. You saw Vernon in this game, Adams Jr. He was just like he was just double guessing himself every single time. He was pump faking. He was throwing wild passes. And you talked about that run game for Winnipeg. He had 21 carries, 109 yards, one touchdown. What the Stamp should have done all year, but they didn't. Yeah, Brady Oliveira was amazing in this one. And it really seemed like this game should have been probably more in Winnipeg's favor than it was. I felt like it was still very close there in the fourth quarter. I don't know if that was just, 2-and-outs by Winnipeg or just, I don't know, but they definitely rely on the run game to get them this win, and that's what they did.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, it should have been. It's a lot closer on the scoreboard than I think the game really was.
Yeah.
A couple of missed field goals from Sergio Castillo that, really kind of were backbreakers for that Bomber team for a little while. They had a chance to really start to pull away, but they kept missing those kicks and allowing BC to stay close.
Yeah.
And yeah, just not able to really capitalize on a lot of opportunities that they had. And we didn't see a lot from Zach Collaros in this game. He didn't look too strong. Only 160 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions though, which is, something that he can be a little bit prone to is turning the ball over. He can be a bit of a gunslinger at times. And I mean, they don't need him to be the guy who steals the show anymore or the guy who drives it down for them. He just needs to be a game manager behind center.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, 160 yards. That's, last year or 2 years ago, this would have been like a 300, maybe 250-yard game. But now it's Brady Oliveira every time. And Montreal's going to have to find a way to stop that. So, and then there was that fake punt, I think, by BC. Stefan Flintoff, because he's 1 for 1 for 9 yards. So there's that fake punt, I think. I don't know what quarter that was, but yeah, it's pretty cool, I guess, to see a fake punt because you don't see that a lot.
Yeah, they were pretty desperate at that point. I think it was the second quarter. It was pretty late, and they were just getting they were just getting pounded. They couldn't move that ball at all, and they were just getting sacked. And the offense was stagnant, and they had to find some sort of spark. But then, yeah, they convert a fake punt, but then I'm pretty sure it was a 2-play and then a punt again right after that. They couldn't get anything going.
No.
And I mean, I live out here, and it was definitely a disappointment for a lot of the fans out here. And the fans really got behind this Lions team out here this year, and it was really cool to see just how many people were showing up to BC Place to watch that team.
Yeah. Yeah, and now Winnipeg faces Montreal in the Grey Cup as we get to the Grey Cup preview. I find it fascinating. I like Montreal. I mean, I like their defense. I like what they've been doing throughout this year in the playoffs. They've been winning with it. And Sean Lemon, man, I miss him on the Stampeders. He has been a game wrecker for them. And yeah, I just like it. Now they're gonna have to find a way to stop Brady Oliveira because they can't do what BC did and allow him plenty of yards there in the first half. They're going to have to find a way to stop that. But man, can they get interceptions and they force turnovers. So it's going to be very intriguing. I actually have a CFL card to determine my prediction in this one. It is Kevin Glenn, former every team player. He's played with almost every team. I think Winnipeg was the only team he didn't play with, but I'm going with the Montreal Alouettes to win the Grey Cup 26-20. What about you? Who do you got and what's your score prediction?
Oh goodness. Well, I mean, Kevin Glenn, like he got famous. Like he was a breakout star with the Bombers. Like that was one of his. I think that's maybe where he spent the longest time was with Winnipeg. So, it's you got that one a little backwards, but I think yeah, it's gonna be. I don't think it's gonna be a high scoring game. I think we're gonna see a lot of game management from both quarterbacks. I mean, Bombers won pretty handily in the season series. They won both games. They won 17-3 in week 4 in Montreal, and then at home week 12, 47-17. They absolutely just steamrolled the Owls, who coming into the playoffs had not won a game against Winnipeg, Toronto, or BC, the 3 teams that had better records than them. They were 0-7, but they were 11-0 against every team below them. But they kind of, they kind of switched that a little bit with that big win.
Yeah.
And, but like I said, it's going to be probably a low scoring game. I think we're going to see a lot of management beside both quarterbacks. Cody Fajardo did not look strong against this Winnipeg defense both times he played them. So we'll see. I think they're going to try to take some chances early. But I think it's at this point, it's too much it's just going to be too much for this Alouette team. I think coming into this week, I think it's going to be like 23-11. It's going to be a really low scoring game.
Wow. 23-11.
I think.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be low scoring, man. It's going to be tough sledding for both teams, but I think there's just going to be a couple of drives where a couple of Brady Oliveira runs are going to open things up. It's going to open up that play action, and then I mean, we'll see who ends up dressing for the Bombers on that receiving core. They've been dealing with those injuries.
Yeah, they have.
But I think it's going to be too much for them to ask, and we'll see how that really good defense of Montreal is able to shut down the running game. If they can do that, they can keep this one close, but I think it's going to be too much for them. I think the Bombers they're officially going to make this one a dynasty.
You know, that's interesting. So you think it's 3 Grey Cups for a dynasty, or do you think it's 2? Like what is considered a dynasty to you?
I mean, that's tough, and it can kind of depend on the sport, right? But
yeah,
I mean, to win 3 in 4 years, I think, I mean, that's pretty cut and dry. Like you can't really deny that as being a dynasty. 2 straight, especially with a COVID season in between where there was no football. I mean, that's unbelievably impressive. I think if it had been alternating years, if they had won, then lost, then won again, I think you call them a dynasty. But the fact they lost that last Grey Cup,
I
think you
still
can
don't know how
kind
they
of put a
lost.
touch of doubt in it.
Yeah, I don't know how they lost that last. I don't know. That was a weird Grey Cup last year, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to watch. I got Montreal just because I really don't want to see Winnipeg win again, but you
Fair.
may be right. It may be a low scoring game. I mean, Cody Fajardo he hasn't been the reason they've been winning. It's truly because of their defense. But yeah, they'll need to stop the run. And Winnipeg, it's not like they don't have a dynamic passing game, so they're going to have to watch out for that. But any other thoughts on any of these games that you want to go over?
Well, I think it's going to be the battle of the two secondaries is going to be really interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing Demario Houston on the Winnipeg side, and then you've got Marc-Antoine Dequoy on the other side, who had that big pick six last week. I mean, he is the most outstanding Canadian for the East this year, and he's going to be someone who's going to be relied on heavily to keep those eyes on Collaros, watch where that ball's going, because I mean, there's no shortage of options on that receiving core for Winnipeg. So he's got a tall task, but I think he's going to be pretty much a key for this Montreal team. Whereas, if Demario Houston, we'll see how much he lines up against a guy like Austin Mack. But I'm going to really like that battle if we see those two going at it all night.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting battle to watch, but we'll keep our eye on that. But that'll do it for this podcast. Brett, thanks so much for joining me as a guest on this one. It came pretty much last minute, but we were able to get one in. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. And a huge shout out to the UBC Thunderbirds winning the Hardy Cup on the weekend on a last second play, coming all the way back, forcing that fumble, driving it all the way down against the U of A. And
Wow.
then Garrett Rooker finding Sam Davenport in the end zone with no time left on the clock for the win. Now they're heading to
Wow.
they're heading to the Mitchell Bowl this week. There's still lots of good Canadian football. Vanier Cup's coming up in 2 weeks. So
2 weeks already. Wow. Yeah, I know the Dinos haven't had a great year. I'm not sure. I don't think they've had a good year.
they were terrible this year.
Yeah,
I think they finished 3-7 or something like that.
the last game of the year, didn't they have like I don't even know. They like fumbled the ball, and then I think Saskatchewan was the one that picked it up and scored to like miss the
Yeah,
playoff.
it was the Bisons. They had to beat the Bisons of Manitoba by more than 12, and they fumbled it on the last play. And then yeah, it was rough, but I mean, there was no one who was going to beat the UBC Thunderbirds, and now they play Saint FX. And then we got Montreal and Western in the UTEC Bowl, and U Sports has been great this year. CFL's been great this year, and yeah, it's fun to come on and just talk about it.
A big shout out to Brett Lubkiwski for joining me today on the podcast. Make sure to watch out for the Stampeders Season in Review podcast. It should be coming today, so keep your eyes out for that. But until next time, we'll see you later.